Be seated. My name is Hae-young Choi from Seongkyungkwan University, and I'm hosting the keynote speech of the first day. The keynote speech, one of the main events of the IFLA World Congress, gives you a glimpse of various perspectives on the theme of the event, Republic Landscape. Today's keynote speakers are Henri Bava, the founder and co-CEO of Ajangster, and Craig Pocock, the head of the Becca design practice. The first keynote speaker is Henri Bava. He founded Ajangster in 1986 and has been pushing the limits of their profession by crossing the positions between urban planners, architects, and landscape architects. Major works of Ajangster include Park of the Docks in Sangtuan, Park of the Peuple de l'Herbe in Chanteloup, and the redesign of Pershing Square in LA. He is now a full-time professor at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology in Germany. He also teaches design studios at Harvard GSD on occasion since 2010. So let's welcome Henri Bava with a big round of applause.
So thank you so much to the organizers of this essential IFLA World Congress in Gwangju. And all my congratulations to Adrian Heuser. I know you since a long time, and I admire your work and the work of West 8. So today we will speak about the leading, exactly like Adrian, leading landscape architects. We were facing climate change this summer. So this summer, while Seoul were flooded, French forests were burning in many places. The climate change is not virtual. It's not a theory we cannot believe or not. It's here and there. And it seems, sadly, that it will get worse in the future. The increasing demography is clear. So we used to be 4 billion people on Earth 50 years ago, and we are now the double. So it's obvious that we have to adapt urgently our planet in order to protect our living conditions, our biodiversity. We, landscape architects, have to work in relation with both changes, climate change, for sure, and the increasing of demography, which implies more density or more urban extension, urban changes. That means that we, landscape architects, cannot ignore urbanism. So we are happy to have the IFLA listing of the task of the landscape architects. The list of our tasks is clear, and thanks to the IFLA to have done it, it's really helpful. But beyond the tasks, I would like to focus on the position of the landscape architect in the design team for urban planning or urbanism in general. So how could we ensure the right place for the landscape everywhere when we have an urban extension? So we could do more in matter of urbanism. We could guide as landscape architect instead of following or waiting to be asked at the end of the urban design process. We should intervene from the beginning of the design as much as possible. We have some theoretical approaches helping us to comfort this idea of the importance of landscape architecture, like the one from Charles Waldheim, Miguel Ruano, Sébastien Marot, or Mohsen Mostafavi, They are reading or speaking about landscape urbanism, landscape as urbanism, eco-urbanism, suburbanism, ecological urbanism. So it's a huge tribute, theoretical tribute, even if no one of them was educated as landscape architect. It's a gift for us, landscape architect. But I have read an article saying that the landscape urbanism from Charles Waldheim, the idea coined by Charles Waldheim, is an interesting theory, but has no chance to be applied in the real world. I was really shocked to read this, so I decided to try to demonstrate in this intervention today, during the IFLA World Congress, that not only this does exist in practice, but it is sometimes more than landscape urbanism, more than a dialogue between two disciplines, landscape and urbanism. It is sometimes the landscape architects who are leading the whole project. That means giving more chance to the landscape, more chance to generate a sustainable city. We could name it landscape-led urbanism. So I take as case study the French context. Not the best one, not the best case, but the one I know the best. So let's start with the legacy. Versailles. So this, it's not at all a republic landscape. I know it was at a time we had a king at that time. It was not a republic, it was a kingdom. But watching the plan, it's clear that the garden and the city are conceived together. It's a mirror plan. So on both sides of the castle, the same opening from the alleys on one side, the side of the garden, or the avenues on the side of the city, are more or less so in mirror. So that means that the gardener, Le Nôtre, guided the interdisciplinary team through a plan, a master plan, we could say today, including future city, the remodeled castle in the middle, and the new gardens. How did he negotiate with the time schedule? This painting of Versailles, with a view from above, shows how the landscape is a structure giving the coherence to the whole city, castle, park, ensemble, all together, by integrating building, water management, the canal and the different lakes we cannot see in the picture, but which are linked to the canals, the infrastructures, the arts, etc. Architecture is one of the components of this big landscape. Landscape is an integrative structure organizing all the interrelations between the components of the project. And the landscape is anticipating the future city. Like we can see in the bottom of this picture, with the row of trees, the row of trees are underlining the future urban blocks. The blocks are not built at that time, but they will come. So the future built volume is more or less already there, visible from the beginning of the project, through the rows of trees. This is then a clear example of landscape structure organizing the city, a landscape-led urbanism. Why could we be today inspired by this example? How? After Versailles, so before that time and today we have other steps. After Versailles and the 18th century of global engineering, so it was really the century of engineering. So engineers used to have a global understanding of the landscape, city, urban extension. So we can see here, for example, a global representation of the landscape, and they invented the 3D model, I can say. It is a very old model here, but so from the 18th century. Their representations are exceptional. And then in the following years, we had the renewing of Paris. So under the reign of Napoleon III, it was the renewing of Paris was in focus. So first, they asked a landscape architect on the left side, Louis-Sulpice Varet, to redesign not the entire city, but an existing fringe on the west, so the Bois de Boulogne, to develop this kind of wood as a park, as a public park for everyone. Every Parisian could go there. So the Bois de Boulogne as an attractor for Parisians, with a big lake in the middle. So it's an English style garden, so a Franglish garden maybe. And this is it. It was a very strong input for Paris. On his office door, this landscape architect, so this gardener that time, Louis-Sulpice Varet, wrote, it was in the site construction, he wrote architecte paysagiste. So very proud of him, so he wanted to promote himself as a team leader. And Frederick Law Olmsted, the well-known Frederick Law Olmsted, during his trip through Europe, first England with the public park, and then Paris with this, the Park of Boulogne. He went there in Boulogne several times to analyze the project, and after his trip, Olmsted developed the term of landscape architect. So he was with no doubt influenced by Louis-Sulpice Varet, and he turned architect paysagist into landscape architect with the success we know and the significance we know. Charles Waldheim wrote a very interesting text about this anecdote, which is the beginning of the profession, the naming of the profession. But unfortunately, it was not the glory for Louis-Sulpice Varet, the French one. He was very quick, very fast replaced by the engineer Adolphe Alphon, taking the leadership for the water management of the Bois de Boulogne. So instead of pumping the water in the lower river Seine, he used the gravity, bringing the water from the upper canal, the Lourcq. And by extension, Alphon took the complete leadership of the public spaces of Paris. So he organized the porosity of Paris between the green lungs. So here we can see the Bois de Boulogne today. This is Alphon on the left side, and the landscape architect in his team, Jean-Pierre Barrier-Deschamps. Here we can see both green lungs on both sides, west and east of Paris. And the idea was really to reorganize the promenades inside the city and to connect them with the two green lungs. Even more, the Alphon surname was the gardener of Paris. This engineer became the gardener of Paris while managing the trees, plantation of trees, the street space, facades, sewer, civil engineering, as Adrian said not a long time ago, through the establishment of rules. Yeah, the rules were very, and are still important in urbanism, One of the rules come from his landscape architect, the rule of the vellum, yeah? So the maximum height of the buildings. Yeah? The current buildings should not exceed 20 meters, which is the average height of a mature tree. So we did have exceptions in those rules, like the site-specific park, the Butte-Chaumont Park, realized in a former quarry by the landscape architect we show right now. Then further in the 19th century comes Jean-Claude Nicolas Forestier. He was educated as engineer, then forester, and then landscape architect. He could have been the son of Olmsted, developing park systems, so système de parc in French, at an international level. France, Morocco, Barcelona, Sevilla, Buenos Aires, La Habana, and Cuba, with no break, but continuity between planning and project, until the realization, until the detail at a garden scale, until textures and plants. No contradiction between planning and project here. It is the same process, and the landscape architect could ensure this continuity between planning and project realization. And he is the co-founder of the SFU, the Société Française des Urbanistes, so the association of urbanists, which is still active today. So he's then important in the story of landscape-led urbanism. Then we have the modernist period of architecture with the genius, Le Corbusier, architect, developing the idea, so in many ideas, but the idea that the landscape is very important, but not the landscape's architects. He didn't like gardens and hedges. They were prohibited. So he wanted to have le plan libre, yeah, so an open space, green but open, so very clearly visible. The following 70s, during the 70s, there were developed landscapes without landscape architects, the so-called green spaces. It was the death of landscape architecture in France and in many other countries, with some exceptions, great exceptions. So here, Michel Corajoud, associating topography and water management in Grenoble, it's called La Villeneuve de Grenoble. He created a strong identity for this new extension, this grand ensemble, as we call it. Yeah? So it is still beautiful today. This park is remarkable. Then later, so this is the same park here in Grenoble today. Yeah? So later, the same landscape architect, Michel Corajoud, so made the synthesis, he was hybridizing forest and park in a kind of rebirth of Le Nôtre composition, maybe. So it is in the suburb of Paris, le Parc du Saussay, creating in the middle an artificial marsh with a strong biodiversity. So here today it's recognized as a Natura 2000 zone. It is a protected natural zone. So we can see here the geometry, which could be a kind of Le Nôtre rebirth, but then the park, so connecting the periphery, the suburbia with the project. Another park from Michel Corajoud is in Bordeaux. It's not a park, it's a promenade along the river Garonne, And there he was really, he opened the city to its river. Yeah, it was before harbor with fences, and it became a huge promenade. So his intervention in Bordeaux was recognized, and the city, the entire city or the entire city center was recognized as World Heritage Center after his intervention. So we can see promenades combining everyday's life and highlights, urban intensities like this very well-known mirror place. But Michel Corajoud started almost at the same time as the first project we saw from him, Grenoble, almost at the same time in 68, so 70. He started as a teacher in the school of Versailles, so landscape architectural school. And he stayed, or he used to teach 30 years long in Versailles. So he is here among his students. And his motto was learning by teaching. He was not totally landscape architect at the beginning. He was educated as in Art Deco, Art Décoratif, but he learning by teaching. He believed in collective intelligence to get further and had no limit in the design process. It was maybe the core of his teaching. And now I would like to share with you some example of his former students. We called the Corajoud generation. Yeah, so 30 years long. So teaching is quite a big influence in the French landscape architecture. For example, Alexandre Chemetov is one of his first students. He developed the plan guide in the land. It was an other idea of master planning, not really a master plan, but a plan guide with a lot of attention to the context. The context could be plants, trees, infrastructures, buildings, so industrial components. So he shared this attention with everyone in Nantes, with the inhabitants, and he developed during 10 years long this project of Ile de Nantes, entire islands, which is 460 hectares big. It is, he devoted his office entirely to this project, 10 years long. It's a huge tribute. So he analyzed the existing buildings, the existing materials, the crane, and developed the project with all those elements without to destroy them, to integrate them in the project. It is a real an important important project for landscape architecture as a landscape-led urbanism. Another well-known landscape architect is Michel Desvignes, for sure. Yeah, so team leader for this. So with many architects, well-known architects in his team. So for Saclay, yeah, so the campus of Saclay, which is big one, yeah, so 900 hectares, and he focused his attention and his work on the geography first. So geography first is important. He was working on the edge of this plateau de Saclay, and he developed from the edge, and so the reforesting the edge, the new urban extension there. So we can see here so beautifully, so the first stages of the site construction, preparing the ground before urbanization for the water management, but then after realization it is for sure a beautiful site for the promenades, for the pleasure to understand to the site, the edge of the plateau, the visual connections with the city of Orsay. So with clear design, yeah, so clear graphics, yeah, so showing the work on the topography, the lower topography to in connection with the water management for sure, and then the first plantings. The plantings are the plants, the trees are the structure of the project. And after that, after this project, he developed another very big regional project in Lens, in the north of France, in a post-mining region. And here, Michel Devine is another team leader of developing a strategy for the complete the whole region, creating continuities, and once again working with wooden continuities to establish the connection between the station to the museum, the new Louvre Lens Museum, and so on. Yeah, so this is or restoring existing landscapes, like we can see here, or adapting the project to the topography, guiding promenades to the coal tips, so existing coal tips. Another very interesting project is from Jacqueline Hosty, landscape architect, team leader, so with architects in her team, with engineers. She's developing, it is under progress, the Eco-Quartier Flaubert in Rouen. It is a big district, 90 hectares, directly connected with the river Seine. So it's an important contribution to the profession. We can see here the first stage, a big park along the Seine, which will be not only for this district, but for sure a metropolis park in this context. Jacqueline Hosty is developing another, it's almost finished yet, another district, this time in Paris. So a big fringe from about 50 hectares big. Batignolles, it's called Batignolles, together with François Greter, urbanists. And here there is a park in the middle with a lot of porosity on every side. It takes place in at the place where we used to have a fringe, a railway fringe, and she's developing here a big park, reorganizing the city all around this central park, new central park, the park Martin Luther King Park, 10 hectares big, with a bit like Michel Devine, a lot of plantations, water management, a lot of uses, creating or generating uses in many spaces. It is one of the big new parks inside downtown Paris, with so places where we feel well to be. So it is very dense in the surroundings. We can see the buildings are higher than everywhere in Paris. It's not the same rule as Alphon, I told you before. It is higher, but with those new rules, we can develop big parks every time we build a new district. So with nice contact situations directly to the water, giving us the possibility to be in the wild, in the middle of Paris, and creating continuities towards Haussmannian Paris streets. One of those former students from Michel Corajoud is Agence Terre, myself, with my partners, Michel Osler and Olivier Philippe. So we are developing right now in Barcelona the Glorias Catalanas Plaza, so central square, it was called at the beginning, so 15 hectares big. In fact, it is more or less a park or a hybridizing between park and plaza. So it is. It used to be a former a big interchange, an elevated concrete interchange, and at the same place, we proposed to develop a big central park plaza, redefining the former limits. So we had to make it a bit clearer than it was, because it was only an interchange, a junk space maybe, so on the limits all around. And it was this action was possible because of the decision of the city of Barcelona to place the existing infrastructures, the freeways, in the underground. It is a huge infrastructural project, but it gave us the opportunity to create a large climatic canopy for Barcelona. And in Barcelona, during the summer, for sure, we need shade. Yeah, we need to lower the temperature. During this site construction, which is very long with different phases, we used the existing infrastructures as for sport activities, for gardening activities, events. So it's important to organize those temporary activities. This is here the realization of the first phase of the park, and the realization in this canopy, in this park, we have as well what we called nodes, so ecological islands, pure ecological islands with fences, invisible fences for sure, but fences protecting the biodiversity, the birds, the animals, and the plants. And we have several of them here, so they are here realized. We can sit around them, but not go inside this ecological islands, and we have for sure different activities. But even more interesting is the second decision of the city of Barcelona is to develop a super block strategy. Every three streets, only one street remain as for the traffic, and 2 streets are devoted to pedestrian, for the city life, for bikes, pedestrian. So it is a huge transformation. It's only under conception right now, but it could be together with this park plaza, the connection. It will be a real revolution for the entire city of Barcelona. Another project from us it's an ongoing project. As team leader here is a new district in Strasbourg, 80 hectares, 85 hectares big, at the junction, at the border between France and Germany. It is a harbor, part of the harbor. Here we do already have a tramway connecting France and Germany. And it is almost the end, or the highlight of an urban extension during the last 20 years along the water from the west to the east. Here we are reaching the Rhine River and Germany. It is really intense, really interesting to work with French, with German. And instead of only focusing on this west-east orientation, we proposed to enlarge the view, yeah? So enlarge the understanding of this site to go north and south, in the north-south orientation. And there in the north we found a forest, remaining forest, alluvial forest. In the south as well, another forest. And the proposal is here to connect through this district, reconnect the 2 remaining forests. So that means in this district we will increase the number of inhabitants, and we will increase at the same time the biodiversity. This is very important. This is a challenge. So developing the biodiversity at the same time almost the same place, same project. Here we can see the connection to the forest in the north, the parks, the ecological band, I can say, or corridor along the canals going in the direction of the forest outside the district. And then for sure we have urban rules, so with the water and the parks as centrality, and then the organization of alleys, pedestrian alleys, streets, and then at the end we can build. So this is so we are working with architects for sure here for this project, with 51 N4E and with the list architects, and they are developing the buildings in this project. But first we had to think about the base, and the base is the soil. We needed a lot of cubic meters of topsoil. We didn't want to take it from outside. We found them inside, but in the underground. In our side, but in the underground. We moved with together for sure with the client, so the SPL of Strasbourg. We moved everything, every centimeter of this 80 hectares land to put the topsoil from the former topsoil, which was in the underground, in the surface, on the surface. And with this action, we could develop first the plantation before the building. So, and now the buildings are under construction. In the same city, Alfred Peter, landscape architect, was during the last 25 years developing the tramway connection, a green tramway. Yeah? So it's changed the city of Strasbourg. We can see here, the green continuity. Yeah? So the tramway is almost floating in the green. So here in the urban center, along the water or in the countryside, it is connecting Strasbourg with the suburb, and it's a beautiful project. The last project today is it's for the base landscape architects, the youngs maybe of this generation, Bertrand Vignal, Clément Villemin, and Franck Poirier, working, converting this former military fort into a metropolis park in Lyon-Blandan, dealing with the topography, with the wild. Yeah, so they like the wild. We like, everyone like the wild, especially in the city center. But they have an art to combine the wildness with attractors, and playgrounds here are very important attractors, connecting everyone, and a very important place for the community and for everyone coming to this park. So this is the way to protect our planet through its transformation. Is for sure we are speaking about the practice of landscape architects, any kind of practice. So every one of the landscape architects has to develop landscapes at various scales, leading or not leading, to generate transformations, having an efficient action at the climatic level. Voltaire, the French philosopher, said, "Il faut cultiver notre jardin." We have to cultivate our garden. Our garden is the planet Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Bava.